It wasn't always easy for Arizona, but they beat the Dayton Flyers and head off to the Sweet 16 with a couple of players that I don't know that we necessarily expected that type of involvement. All that and more on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen after Arizona takes care of Dayton. All right, we are at the stage now where you don't really care how the game happens. You just care that the team wins. Sweet 16, survive and advance, my friends. Survive and advance. That is the key, and that's exactly what Arizona did. Now, listen, Arizona was clearly a better team than Dayton. You could tell that within the first, 5 minutes of the game. There was probably 2 or 3 players at Dayton that would play at Arizona. Granted, Deron Holmes is an absolute monster. He is a player that there are not a lot of players like Deron Holmes in college basketball. He can do a lot of different things, and he obviously showed that. But here's where it's also a little bit interesting, though, for Arizona fans, is that Arizona did a very, very good job eliminating the others, as Shaquille O'Neal likes to say. And that going into this game, I was worried about this game for a variety of reasons. First and foremost is the three-point shot. Dayton is a very, very good three-point shooting team, and they play at a slower pace. Arizona did not care. Arizona did a very, very good job of running them off the three-point line. And not only did they do a very good job of running them off the three-point line, they also did a job where I think it's fair to say that it was one of their better defensive performances of the year. Now, again, it wasn't without flaw because, again, Oumar Ballo had to be taken out at times because of the pick and roll defense, but that's something that I think that we kind of expected. I think that's something that we knew would probably be the case. But overall, though, Arizona did what it needed to do. Now, there were some troubling signs. We're going to get the bad stuff out of the way because it's almost all good. Again, I'd hate the turnovers. The turnovers at the end of games and especially at the end of the first half, are just mind-numbing because there's really no rhyme or reason for why they happen. They're just because a lot of these ones aren't forced either. I think that's the thing that's frustrating. They're not necessarily forced. And so these turnovers occur and you're like, all right, what just really happened there? But there's that. Either way, now let's get to the good stuff. Jaden Bradley to the rescue. This guy is becoming like Jason Terry was on that 1997 national championship team. And we've been making that comparison a lot this year. He comes in and he is able to just change the complexity of the game, change the dynamic of the game. And he does it for a bunch of different ways. First, he is able to get down in the weeds and deflect passes, do a lot of different things that you sometimes just don't show up on the box score, but defensively, he has a real knack for the basketball, and it's something that's quite impressive, to be honest. You generally don't see guys that come off the bench that are probably the best defensive player on the team. And not only that, he is an absolute hound. He can pick you up full court. He can get down in the trenches with the big men. I mean, you look at that stat line, no turnovers, blocked shots, steals. He was everywhere. I've also never bought into the argument that he can't score. Is he Salim Stoudemire from three-point range? No. But he's good enough, and he has shown that he can make clutch shots, and that's something that you can't really put a value on. The guy just comes up big when it matters, and he's done that pretty much all season. And let's be honest, he's done it. He's been very unselfish about it because there's been times where you're like, probably shouldn't have, there's been times where you're like, this guy should probably be starting. Listen, players know who's better. And Kylan Boswell had a good game, or has had a couple good games, but overall, Jaden Bradley has been the better point guard this year for Arizona, and that showed. You got to be able to, but either way, Jaden Bradley has done it, and I think you're going to continue to see that. There's got to be, in my opinion, there's got to be a quick hook because it's not even so much about Kylan Boswell. It's about what Jaden Bradley brings to the court when he isn't out there on the court. And I think that's something that we need to keep a very close eye on. But Jaden Bradley was the difference in this game. Arizona, that lead started dwindling against Dayton. Jaden Bradley got in there and he just changed the entire tenor of the game. He was finishing at the hoop. He was getting steals. And again, he's a little bit like KJ Lewis in that he's just got that ability to be where the ball is, know where the ball is, and then just make plays. He was absolutely fantastic in this game. And it's something, hopefully it's a harbinger of things to come, because I don't really think that there's any reason that it shouldn't be, because he's got all the talent. And again, like I said, a lot of people don't necessarily think that he can score or all that. I think that he can easily be, if he gets 30 minutes, I think he's easily a 12 to 14 point per game guy, but he's just a difference maker. He was the player of the game. Deron Holmes was the best player on the court. This was the most impactful player, Jaden Bradley, and it wasn't even close. My only gripe was that I thought that Tommy Lloyd should have gone to him early. Listen, Kylan Boswell, it wasn't like he was destructive, but Boswell also wanted nothing to do with any three-point shots. He was airballing shots, and he just didn't want anything to do with those possessions, which is totally fine. But if I'm playing a team and I know that I don't have to defend a player, I'm playing 4-on-5, especially when I got Umar Ballo, leader of men, in there, who's not going to exactly stretch the court, I need to have another option. And not only do I need to have another option, it's got to be somebody that has that confidence. Jaden Bradley comes in with confidence. Not only does Jaden Bradley come in with confidence, you can tell that he's ready to go, that he's ready to do what he needs to do. So I think there's got to be a quicker hook. I thought that Arizona was playing with fire a little too much, letting Boswell be in the first 5 minutes of the game. I think there was kind of a point where you're like, all right, might want to switch this one up a little bit. Either way, Jaden Bradley came in and he collected it. He was fantastic. A salute emoji, all of that. Then Pelle Larsson. Got to give Pelle a ton of credit. Pelle Larsson was able to make threes, and they were big threes. They were clutch threes. And not only were they clutch threes, they were shots where you're like, ooh, that it was, and he made a couple plays off the bounce. That 1-3 at the top of the key, that was that was huge. That was the one that kind of felt like it put the game away, but he was also getting in the lane. You look at his stat line, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He would just kind of had his, tentacles in every single aspect of the game. And it was just cool to see, because again, he's a player. He's far from flawless, obviously, but he had a very nice game, and it was cool to see. And honestly, he didn't start out. He started out struggling a little bit, but overall, very good stuff. There were some other players too that obviously really set the tone. We're going to talk about them next. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. We were talking about Arizona beating Dayton 78-68, 78-68. Yeah. Now, the next one that we need to talk about is Keshad Johnson. Keshad Johnson is a great, great recruiting tool for Tommy Lloyd, in that Keshad Johnson came to the U of A, and a big part of his reasoning is that Tommy Lloyd told him, listen, man, I'm going to give you the opportunity to showcase some perimeter skills. At San Diego State, they win a lot of games. Obviously, they do a really good job there. But Keshad Johnson was always just going to be kind of a junkyard dog. At Arizona, he's already made more three-point shots than he made during his entire tenure at San Diego State. And honestly, he's shooting them with confidence. He looks good doing it. And that's what I think is also impressive about it, is that he looks confident. And there's also a couple times too, like, let's just talk about that second half. He came out and he made a three almost immediately to start the second half. Then he had that driving dunk reverse where it was just like, whoa. I mean, he was all over the place. And that's what Arizona brought him in for. Arizona brought him in to be a game changer. And he's better than when he's really going. You just know it. I don't really care what his stat line is. I don't need to have 18 and 13. You just know it because his energy, his electricity, everything about him is top notch. And that's really the case. And that's where, he was kind of the trump card. You got to keep in mind, Deron Holmes is obviously very, very good. Arizona had a hard time defending him. But when Arizona goes small, Keshad Johnson is going to be that 5-man. And I thought he performed admirably. Granted, DaRon Holmes is just a problem for pretty much anybody. I'm not really breaking any news there, but this is a squad that needs Keshad Johnson, because honestly, there's going to be times when Umar Ballo can't play. And you saw that again, Dayton. Dayton did everything they could to get him in pick and roll action, because that's kind of where Umar gets caught in no man's land. He's okay if he's going to slide down, but he really doesn't have any capacity to hedge. And not only does he not really have any capacity to hedge, he's also always just in no man's land where you can just tell it's not comfortable for him. So there's going to be games where Keshad Johnson has got to be that big man, and not only be that big man, be the one that kind of just puts his foot down and was like, I'm gonna rock this one. And he was able to do that. Now, DaRon Holmes obviously drew a lot of fouls. Arizona was trying to put KJ Lewis on him, Keshad Johnson, et cetera, et cetera. But you got to have that guy that's willing to take on that moment. And I think that's where Keshad Johnson is just a winner, in that if you need him to do the dirty work, cool. But granted, he wants to play in the NBA. He's not stupid. And he wants to be able to show that he can shoot the three-point shot. And he's shown that. So you got to give him a ton of credit. And then obviously, KJ Lewis, another one. You got two nuclear weapons coming off the bench in Jaden Bradley and KJ Lewis. When they come off the bench, they change everything, because there's nobody else on the roster like them. Jaden Bradley is the best point guard on the roster, obviously. But KJ Lewis comes in there. He's strong. He's physical. Defensively, he's really good as well. Just a guy that just understands basketball and knows how to play. Both those guys were great. And we got to give Mount Crevis a ton of credit, too. Big Mo Crevis. A lot of people saying, why is he out there? Because he gets the ball stripped away from him. Listen, I've been telling people Mo Crevis is going to be good, and that moment is coming sooner than later. You saw it today. He had a couple nice finishes, couple rebounds. He played some big minutes, and I still believe that it's somewhere down there, there is going to be a time when Arizona is going to need him against a really, really good team. And Arizona's you got 2 down, you got 4 to go. Mo Crevis showed out, though. That was obviously awesome. And then Caleb Love was awesome to begin with, but obviously struggled down the stretch. I'm cool with it, though, because Arizona was able to pick him up. I think there was a huge, big part of this year where people are wondering, what's going to happen with Arizona if Caleb Love just, goes cold in the second half. Well, Other players stepped up from Jaden Bradley to Keshad Johnson. And looking ahead, people are like, well, would you rather play Clemson? Would you rather play Baylor? Well, obviously, I'd rather play Clemson. But I'm also at the point, too, I don't really care who it is. I don't really care because I think that this is a squad that I think this is a team that if they bring it, they are good. They are good enough to be able to win. They're good enough to be able to win it all. I don't care if it's Clemson. I don't care if it's Baylor. I don't care who it is. Arizona has an upside that I think is pretty much only matched by UConn, if we're being honest. I think it's those two teams when they are playing at their best, because Arizona, they showed in this, I think was a perfect example. They went big. They went small. Now, listen, there are some issues in play. The turnovers are dumb. Listen, Tommy Lloyd's going to play a faster style than other people. Totally embrace it. Totally love it. I know there's going to be more turnovers, but that also doesn't mean that it needs to be turnovers where you're essentially just handing the ball to somebody, which is kind of the case. And then Kylan Boswell is obviously an issue. I mean, he can have a good game, but then there's games where he's just awful, or this game, he wasn't necessarily awful, but he just wasn't looking to. If you're in the corner and you're getting a wide open shot and you're like, nah, I'm good. I can't have you out there then. You've at least got to shoot it, and you got to shoot it with confidence. I don't care if you go 0-10, you have to at least shoot that. So Arizona, I think as you get deeper into the tournament, you got to have a quick hook, because Boswell right now is just not that dude. Jaden Bradley is that guy. Jaden Bradley was a game changer on both sides of the court. Defensively, offensively, you name it, Jaden Bradley was there. And he's going to be a huge part of what Arizona needs to do going forward. So we will certainly talk about that. But again, I don't care. You don't care how it happens. A win is a win is a win. Arizona is now moving on to the Sweet 16, where they will play either Baylor or Clemson. To me, it's more about what Arizona does than what either one of those schools do. But again, this was a good win for Arizona. You take the 10-point win. You make no apologies and you move on. All right, we're going to be back with you Monday, breaking down Arizona's opponent and everything you need to know. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats.